Hey, welcome back to Historic Investments. We recently got a really interesting collection of Japanese swords. Basically a time capsule of a U.S. serviceman who was assigned to the Pacific Theater, returning to San Francisco, and he sent these swords back to his home in Alton, Illinois. The amazing thing is that each of these items has its own capture paper, something that I've never seen before. And let's just go and examine a few of these items. I think you'll find it really interesting. So George Springman sends this crated samurai sword, and he crated it up very nicely using some plywood here. He puts his return address from his military base in San Francisco, and he sends it to his father in Alton, Illinois. He very carefully packs the sword. Take a look at this. With newspaper, and we still have the original newspaper packing material. Of course, George really wants this sword to get home, so after nailing the crate shut, he says, "May be opened for inspection. Look at that. Clearance certificate enclosed." And what's just fascinating is the clearance certificate is the capture paper for the full-size sword. So what kind of a sword is it? Let's take a look at that. The sword George has selected is a standard mid to late war Japanese officer sword with a production blade, sharkskin handle, usual wrap, and a khaki-colored scabbard. It's got the full-length blade, and in the capture papers, it's referred to the long sword. Here it's got a little button right here, which you press in to release the sword from its scabbard. And if we take a look at the blade, you can see it's got a fairly uniform temper line. And if you kind of look at the polish and you look at the point, it looks like the polish is just as though it left the factory. It's never been apparently sharpened or polished since that time. The fittings are pretty standard for this kind of sword. There's a kind of a brass handguard with a number of spacers. There's a single ring here for either a belt or kind of a shoulder strap attachment, and two additional ornamental features toward the end of the khaki-colored scabbard. The fascinating part about this particular package was the capture paper, which we see here. Of course, you see the faded ink, the usual yellowed paper folds, and right here is the reference, one Japanese sword, parentheses, long, close parentheses. The Tonto Blade, the short sword, was packed just as carefully using the same kind of plywood shipping crate. Again, addressed from the sender, George Springman, to his father in Alton, Illinois. It too was packed, although I guess over time most of the period newspaper has just disappeared. But he was just as interested in calling attention to the fact that this could be opened for inspection and that there was an enclosed certificate, which we'll get to later. The Tonto Blade comes in a very plain and unadorned handle and scabbard, just plain wood. Pulls out very smoothly. The blade is unmarked. It too has a temper line, which is a little bit difficult to see. Maybe if I tilt this just right, you can see it. And the blade on both the sword and the Tonto Blade are just secured with a single pin. So we can take this and pull out the blade. There we go. And then we can look at the tang and see if there are any individual marks on it. I know some of the purists will take offense that I'm touching the blade with my bare hands rather than using gloves, but be assured that it'll all be wiped down after this video. And just as was true for the full-length sword, it too has a separate set of capture papers that we'll look at in just a moment. And here we have the capture paper, which is just a mirror image of the one we previously looked at. You can see the yellowed paper. You can see the usual stained and creased folds. Here's George Springman's name, which is, of course, typed on the usual traditional typewriter, not one of the electronic processors that we have right now. You can see that the ink has faded over time. You can see two official stamps, and you can see the name and the rank of the releasing officer. Just an incredible set of documents for two swords, a full-length sword and the Tonto Blade. Thank you once again for joining us at Historic Investments. It's not often that we get a chance to look at a couple of very interesting Japanese blades. the original shipping crates, and capture papers. Just a wonderful time capsule. Thank you very much. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe.